Up until right now, equality has meant equal to what men have.
Mhm.
I don't want that, you know?
No thanks.
They have it hard enough and they have their own thing, and I'm happy to let them have it.
Yeah.
So I'm not fighting for equality on those terms. And I'm not
Mm.
teaching about it. I'm not writing about equality as equal to men have. I'm
Mhm.
asking for us to find a sense of equality based on our own feminine needs. And it's going to look different and it's going to be different. And different is not a differential. It's not
Yes.
hierarchical. It's not better than the other. Gender differences are okay. Gender differentials are not. So when we're looking for empowerment as feminine women, when we're looking for equality, I don't think we need to look at the pathways that have been set before us by the men who have walked those roads. I'm happy for them, but I've got my own road to walk, and it's not linear.
Welcome to the Soulful Sound podcast, where you will find conscious, inspiring content to support your healing and transformation. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I want to extend a heartfelt invitation for you to be part of our community, where more insightful conversations await to guide you to heal, grow, and thrive. Simply click the subscribe button. It means the world to me. Your support, your comments, everything is truly incredible. And we're only at the beginning of this awesome journey together. I'm so excited to be on this adventure with you, and your subscription is a valuable part of making it all happen. Thank you so much for joining, sending you love, healing, and sound wherever you are. Welcome, everyone, to our latest episode on the Soulful Sound podcast. I'm joined by the beautiful Alanna Kaivalya PhD, who is a best-selling author, educator, thought leader, and expert on mythology, spirituality, psychology, and women's empowerment. She is the author of the books The Way of the Satisfied Woman, Reclaiming Feminine Power, and Sacred Sound and Myths of the Asanas. Alanna has earned a doctorate in mythological studies with an emphasis in depth psychology, and she's also the host of the Satisfied Woman podcast. Welcome, Alanna.
Thank you so much, Simone. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Fabulous. So I love to start these conversations off with a little bit about you. I'm
Sure.
always curious as to the journey of how you got into the work you're doing. So anything that you feel called to share would be amazing.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I'm happy to get to know your listeners a little bit better. So I spent many, many years working on a career, moving down a pathway that I thought was the pathway we were supposed to move down as young women growing up in this culture, being told we can do everything, success at all costs. And so I built a really flourishing career in the yoga and spirituality industry, and I had my own business. I was, the boss. I was holding the reins. And by all accounts, I definitely was successful. I grew that business to a multi-seven-figure endeavor, and it became enormous. And really, I realized how unhappy I was in that experience. And after having been working on that field for so long, as I was studying in that field, I also was studying a lot of femininity, the polarity between masculine and feminine, and finding it more directive in terms of kind of cluing me into what was making me so unhappy. I also, just as a woman in the world, wanted to find a relationship. And because of the way I was behaving in the world, I ended up finding the wrong relationship and marrying the wrong partner for me. So everything kind of came to a head. And I just took stock of what was going on in my life and how, by all external accounts, I was succeeding. I was doing what I was supposed to do in life, but by all internal accounts, I was deeply unhappy. And the realization I came to was that all the things I was pursuing were based on someone else's model that didn't suit me. And namely, it was the patriarchal model and a model that centered masculine traits and features, which is great, except that it's not great if you're a feminine woman. So I was pursuing success in a very masculine way. I was pursuing relationship in a very masculine way. I was presenting myself to the world with a bunch of masculine energy. And really, who I am at my core is not that. So I leaned into my studies of mythology, psychology, relationship, femininity, and realized that what was missing was myself, my true essence, my authenticity. And so I actually left all of that career behind. I took a very hard right and a little break for myself to bring to life the things that I'd already been teaching and talking about, but that I knew it was time to go 100% into. This is where my heart was. And I also kind of saw coming down the pike what was happening for women in this culture right now, which is actually very exciting. We have more choices, opportunity, and agency than we've ever had before. But what we don't have is a roadmap for how to take advantage of that. Because the only roadmaps that have been laid out before us have been on a masculine directive. They're not for us. So I wanted to create that for women, and that's what led me to writing the Way of the Satisfied Woman book and to founding the website, The Satisfied Woman.
Beautiful. I mean, I want to be a satisfied woman. I am a satisfied woman in many ways, actually.
I want that for you too, girl.
You know what? I claim it. I am very satisfied with myself as a woman in the
Good.
world. And I really want to dig deep into this because there's a lot thrown out about femininity, as you said today. I don't even think that the word toxic should come in there, but using it for the understanding of how things are being framed.
Yeah.
And so I really want to delve into it. But before I do, because I know everyone listening might have their own version of, oh, something, I know I'm not really happy, even though things on the outside are working. So
Mm.
I'd love to know some of the kind of, like you said, the internal accounts weren't aligned with the external success. So what were some of the giveaways or the noticings inside of you that allowed you to know, I'm just not happy, even though all of this on the outside is working?
Yeah. That's a great question because it's true from the outside. I was getting all sorts of accolades and compliments and, people saying, "Oh my gosh, you've got your thing, you got your stuff together and you must be doing so well and you must be so happy." And I really didn't feel that way. And what I was feeling truly was a sense of exhaustion,
Mhm.
burnout, because when we are on the wrong polarity, we're exerting so much energy in the direction of inauthenticity, really. So I was exhausted, I was overwhelmed. We also have a pretty strong directive in this culture as women to overdo, to do everything for everyone at all times and also for ourselves. And that's not in the feminine, actually. And so that is also exhausting and overwhelming. I felt a real sense of incongruency on the inside that the things I was desiring and the things that I knew that I needed, I actually wasn't able to get for myself. So, for example, I knew that I needed help. But I'd set up my life in such a way that I was the helper. I was the one assisting everyone else. I was the one that everyone else came to for support. I knew that I needed protection, which is a masculine strength. And for the feminine woman can come from a capable masculine partner. But I was the one doing the protecting. I was the one putting up all the guardrails around me and at the time my husband and my family in order to protect them. So I was doing work that wasn't mine to do, and it was depleting and draining me. I also realized that even when I was doing the things that would normally bring me joy, I was never satiated by them. I was never
Mhm.
fully nourished by them. So I like to sail, and I'd go for, let's say, a sail on a weekend. And normally that would make me feel energized and recentered and grounded. And I would just feel like, oh my gosh, that wasn't enough. Or I'm so panicked that I have to leave the boat and go back to my life. So there was never a sense of satisfaction. Never a
Hmm.
sense of satisfaction. Yes, I was successful. Yes, by all external accounts, I had everything I needed. Yes, I had a person in my life that I was married to, but frankly, the love wasn't there. So there wasn't a sense of satisfaction. And I think it'll really be clear if I define satisfaction for
That's
you.
right. And that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's my next question.
Because it blew me away, having been an academic and studying femininity for so long. There's a pretty seminal book in the masculine world for those who are doing the work of the masculine called The Way of the Superior Man.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was a great title for the masculine who are doing the work of, relieving the distortions and centering their masculinity in a healthy way. And I thought, well, okay, but women aren't looking for superiority. And success is also a very masculine model. So I landed on the word satisfied.
Mhm.
Satisfaction is the pleasure derived from the fulfillment of your wishes and needs. And I saw that and I thought to myself, that is what women need. That is what women are looking for. That is what their souls crave because the feminine does pleasure. We run pleasure through our bodies, and when we can feel and experience pleasure, it radiates outward, and the people around us feel it and experience it as well. Fulfillment is not linear. It's very holistic, it's very horizontal, and it includes those around us as well. Like that old saying, Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So, we in this case as ladies, we're all mamas. And mama, we got to be happy because that is where
Okay.
the fulfillment comes in. That's where we feel completely satisfied. We feel a sense of pleasure. And it comes as a result of us tending to our wishes and needs. Every human has to have their needs met, but humans also want to have their dreams and their wishes fulfilled too. So that's satisfaction. And I truly want it for us all.
Yeah, and I think it's really beautiful and so important that you included the desires and the wishes, not just the needs, because I think a lot of unsatisfaction comes from thinking it has to be one or the other or just the needs, right? And so to
Right.
have that collaboration between those two, I think is really important, a really important distinction. So we've
Absolutely.
covered then satisfaction, which I love. So what does it mean to be a feminine woman? What is that?
So there's a couple of layered pieces to this because clearly we live in a modern time where self-expression can have a lot of different flavors. Gender expression can have a lot of different flavors. Orientation can have a lot of different flavors, and all of those things are awesomely okay. So I just want to say that from the outset, and the population that I speak to specifically are feminine women, women who were born in a female body and who identify as being primarily on the feminine polarity. So all of us as humans have both masculine and feminine energy within our psyche. We all have both. And we can easily navigate between the two when one or the other is necessary. So even the most feminine woman can bring forward her masculine energy, get the job done, achieve something, reach a goal, be decisive. All of that is, we can definitely navigate between the two. However, each of us as individuals is also going to want to lean more toward one polarity than another more of the time. And that's what's going to feel most natural for us, most comfortable for us. It's where we're going to feel most at ease. And we get to do that in the best and biggest way, really, an intimate partnership because then we actually have another human who can hold the other polarity while we hold the one that is ours. And that dynamism actually amplifies both. And in the right partnership, we can even be more of ourselves. But that doesn't negate the other potential opportunities in our lives where we can settle into the feminine, really hold that feminine post. And to be a feminine woman means that your desire, your leaning is more toward a sense of emotional depth, intuition, receptivity, creativity, pleasure, joy, movement, exuberance, wildness, unpredictability. The feminine doesn't have any trouble going in circles, taking a different road, exploring new paths. The feminine is also deeply inquisitive. The
Mhm.
feminine seeks truth. We are the truth seekers. We are the change makers. We are the ones who will question when things don't feel right. And we
Yeah.
might not know why they don't feel right, but we don't have to know because that's logical thinking and that's the masculine. Our job isn't to know or to figure it out. Our job is to feel and to essentially question until the course is correct. So those are some feminine attributes. And the other thing about the feminine that I think is really identifying is that in intimate partnership, a person who is on the feminine polarity is going to want to be cherished, meaning they'll want their partner, ideally a masculine partner, because you want opposite polarities in relationship, regardless of gender expression, orientation, the format of the relationship, any of that. A
Yes.
feminine partner will want her masculine to center and prioritize her emotions and intuition. Never shame her for them. Never tell her she's being crazy. Never try to convince her to utilize her logic and reason instead. Never ask her, oh, are you just on your period right now? Mm-mm. That
Mm.
masculine partner is going to look at his feminine partner and say, baby, what's wrong? And let me help you tend to it. To be cherished is to never be left alone in your pain until a solution can be found. So if that sounds like, ah, yes, please to you, then likely you're also on the feminine polarity.
Absolutely. And I actually, this was a question that I had because as I'm looking through your book, and you mentioned the four keys, which you kind of spoke about just now, right? So
Yes.
security, to know that our needs are provided for, trust, and that
Mm-hmm.
would be trust in ourselves, in
Yep.
those around us, in our
Yep.
situations. Cherishing is a word that you just brought as well. And you spoke about, yeah, this is how I'm feeling at the moment. And the masculine doesn't have to understand, he has to hold space for it, right? So it's
Right.
cherishing and honoring that. And I love those four because and no, safety is another one, and i
Safety.
want to i
Yep.
want to talk about safety.
Okay.
These are really beautifully laid out because I certainly, for myself, I can relate and resonate with all of them. This
Thank
is
you. Yeah.
certainly the deepest desire. And I have three beautiful children, daughter and two sons. And when I talk about this with my sons, it's actually quite heartwarming and beautiful for them to understand that the roles are not the same,
No.
and how they can provide for their woman is in that safety, security, trust, and cherishing,
Right.
not necessarily using those words, but the language that supports it. So it's really beautiful to see it. I'm going to share this formula, if you like, with them. And of course,
Yeah.
my daughter, for her to recognize that within herself as well. Speak to me about the safety piece, because I think that's an important one.
Well, before I do, I just want to say I'm deeply moved that you're bringing this to your kids and particularly to your sons because they do hold a responsibility. And the thing is that when the masculine is empowered and when they are on their like highest path, they want to offer these things to the feminine. And it's
Yes,
okay that the roles are different. Each role is sacred.
yes.
Different doesn't mean a differential, it doesn't mean hierarchical. It's just we each have our roles to play. And when we play them well, we amplify each other. So I'm
Mm,
almost in tears over here hearing that. That's really beautiful.
thank you. Thank you, Alanna.
Yeah, thank you. Your boys are going to be raised well.
Yes, well, they're 18
um,
and 20.
wow.
They're ready to go out there and be expressive in the world, and
It's
in a
wonderful.
way that, they won't be in the nest much longer. So I'm
Yeah.
so glad that we can have these conversations for sure.
Catching them just in time.
Yeah.
So the safety piece, the four keys themselves, look, I want every woman to feel a sense of satisfaction, and I know that this culture, this world right now, it wasn't built for us. It wasn't built for us. We're going to have to do, unfortunately, extra work to get to satisfaction. And we're going to have to, unfortunately, do some training,
Mhm.
education, emotional labor, because everyone else was raised in this culture too, and they don't know it either. So, in order for us to get to a sense of satisfaction, we all have to have the four keys in place as women. And yes, to some extent, we can create that for ourselves. We can provide ourselves with our own safety. We can set up all the ring cameras we like in our home. We can provide ourselves with our own security. Thank goodness we live in a time when we can have our own jobs, manage our own money, have agency over our lives. We can provide ourselves with trust by keying into our intuition and emotions. And we can have our own inner masculine, cherish our feminine, meaning that we center our emotions and our intuition over our logic. And our logic and reason is in service to that. But the reality is, while we can provide all these things for ourselves, do we want to?
Yeah.
Do we want to? Yes, we can. Of course we can. We can do anything. But to do all of that ourselves, number one, is exhausting.
Mhm.
And number two, having to do all that for ourselves really puts us into the masculine because of the world we live in. We live in a masculine dominated patriarchal culture, and we are demanded that we be more in the masculine in order to face that, embrace ourselves for it. So I'm a huge fan of outsourcing, and finding a masculine partner to support us in these endeavors, I think is just, it's one of the great it's one of the great gifts that we'll ever have in our lifetime. And whether that's a masculine partner that stays for a long time, a short time, however that looks, may we all have that incredible support by the healthy masculine at some point. Now,
Mhm.
safety is, at its most fundamental, it's the ability for us to be exactly who we are and be free from harm in body, mind, and heart so that
Mm.
we can actually go anywhere and be free from oppression, persecution, name calling, cat calling, the inappropriate whistling, the inappropriate touching, the fear that we have to walk quickly to our car with our key in our hand in a certain way, the knowledge that we can't go a certain place after a certain time, the way we protect ourselves with our clothing, that we shouldn't show up, asking for it.
Mm.
These are things that I grew up with, and I hope that it's changing for your daughter, but she's probably still got a legacy of some of these things too. It is not safe to be a woman in the world, not 100% of the time. And so
Yeah.
we have to work a little extra hard to create that safety for ourselves. And we ask those around us who love us, who do
Mm.
cherish us, who are interested in this work to provide us with a sense of safety. And safety comes from the masculine in the form of protection. So there's a masculine counterpart trait that
Mhm.
steps in for each of these four keys. And the counterpart trait for safety is protection. And that, yes, it is physical protection. I actually had an experience on the streets of London 2 years ago with my beloved masculine partner where it was late at night. We were having a good time. Of course, we'd had a few drinks. We were on vacation. And I was walking down the street, I thought looking pretty good. And my masculine partner was just a couple of steps behind me, but far enough behind me that another person decided it was his opportunity to get handsy. And had the masculine partner of mine not been there, that could have ended very differently for me. So,
Mm.
I lived in New York City. I've faced that kind of thing many times. It is just, I mean, I hate the idea that women have to brace themselves for this everywhere they go. And I certainly don't want to instill fear. But I do want to acknowledge the reality that we do still live in and recognize that, yes, we are safer perhaps than we have been before, but we don't have to provide all that safety by ourselves either.
Yes, and just a quick question on that, because I know that, and I'm going to ask you about some of the old ways and the new ways of how this
Yeah.
presents. But let's just talk a little bit about the safety within ourselves, because as you
Mm.
said, yes, the beloved partner, the masculine interactions that we can have in partnership, and then of course there is the internal balancing of that feminine and masculine energy within each and every one of us. What are some of the ways that women can enhance safety or bring safety within themselves first?
I think it's knowing your limits, really, knowing your environment. I mean, I think it's acknowledging reality and the reality that we live in and not, you know, I heard a story about a young woman. She was a teenager. And she, rightly so, had the belief that, she should be able to wear whatever she wanted as she left the house. And that's absolutely true. She should be able to wear whatever she wants outside of the house. However, it's not the world that she lives in. So, an acknowledgement and holding of the tension that we absolutely deserve to have equality and safety in the world. However, the world hasn't met us there yet. So to just be present for ourselves, um, to recognize the places that we live, the ways in which we can be more safe, to take care of ourselves, it's a self-protection. It really is. When the external masculine isn't doing it for us, isn't assisting us with it, then our internal masculine will step up or needs to step up. And it is a self-protection. And unfortunately, it does look like sometimes a bit of armor from the world, because the world, again, was not always built for us, which is why I'm trying to start the discussion that, like, look, it's changing. We have to change with it. We have to embrace and encourage this change. And here are some of the ways to do that.
Beautiful. And before we go into how it's changing, can you let me know what those counterparts are for the masculine counterpart? So you said safety is protection. So
Yeah.
what's trust, and what? Tell me about the other three. What's the
Yeah.
part?
So again, that protection comes on many levels, right? Because there's certainly some tough ladies out there who maybe don't need the physical protection, but they'd love the emotional protection. So protection comes on many levels from the masculine. The masculine counterpart for security is providership.
Mhm.
So, talking about how the world has changed, did you know that up until the mid 80s, women could not have their own checking account without a male cosigner?
I didn't
So we're
realize it was the
talking, we're
80s.
talking our mothers,
Yeah.
people who are still alive today didn't have agency over their finances up until a few decades ago. It's mind blowing, but it's true. And
Mm.
so what now we live in a time where, we as women, we can make our own money. We can manage our own money. We can have our own mortgages. That wasn't possible a few decades ago. So we don't need relationship or the old paradigm of like a marriage to provide us with financial security, a roof over our head, social status. We can do all that ourselves. So that level of providership from the masculine, which when the masculine is providing, it's their sense of generosity. They're
Mhm.
excited about it. It makes them feel more themselves. It makes them feel more empowered. That generosity from the masculine to the feminine it's a beautiful gift that they
Mm.
offer. And our gift is to receive it. The feminine is meant to receive. So that providership, sure, if it's the agreement that it has to do with money, fine. But the providership can also be providing support,
Mm.
providing a foundation for you as the feminine to soar in your career, providing that like encouragement. There's a lot to provide, whether it's finances, fine, but there's a lot to provide. Now, trust is loyalty. So we are biologically hardwired for connection. And our evolutionary trajectory as humans has been because of our capacity and desire for relationship. We are not meant to do things here alone by ourselves. And especially feminine women, our DNA is encoded with the desire to have a long term committed partner. So maybe that explains some things culturally that, women are always asking, hey, are you going to put a ring on it? And the men just aren't quite encoded that way. They still have the imperative for commitment, but less so than women do to some extent, because women have this internal knowledge that we are responsible for the family. And it would be great to have a long-term support with that family. So we're looking for commitment. We're looking for
Mhm.
that loyalty. We're looking for that sense of connection solely to us. And that loyalty comes from the man when they prioritize us, when they put us first, and when every action and behavior has our highest well being and benefit in mind. So that's loyalty. That's the trust piece. And finally, the cherishing from the masculine is that sense of presence. Masculine is excellent at presence, like being the mooring ball in a sailor,
Mhm.
right? So I like that mooring ball idea that it is anchored to the ocean floor. And we, as the feminine who experience intuition and emotions, we're always in motion and we are supposed to be. That's who we are. And when we're tethered to that steady mooring ball, we can have all of those emotional and intuitive experiences without harm, danger. It's all structured in a way that that's facilitated and safe. So, that steadiness of the masculine is like the wall that our emotions can break against. And our emotions are the intuition and the wisdom from inside about how things are supposed to go for the both of us, right? The masculine wants to follow a direction, wants to go forward, but it needs to be in response to the emotional depth and intuition of the feminine in order to course correct when things aren't quite going right. So it's the cherishing. The masculine cherishes the feminine by always being responsive to her emotions and intuition and never leaving her alone in her pain without finding a solution.
Oh, stunning. And I really love the inside out approach to most things. And I love how beautifully apt this is for the inner landscape as well. So that
Yeah.
balancing, that's kind of sacred union within yourself, being able to bring both of those things. Of course, then I believe there is then a reflection in those that you then attract. So this is
Yes.
stunning.
Yes.
You mentioned a little moment ago about equality. You brought the word equality, and I think that's a really important one. Again, that I have a lot of these kind of conversations with my children and my friends around what equality actually means. So, how does the satisfied woman differ from the previous notions of feminine
Mhm.
equality right now, in the world?
Yeah. So up until right now, equality has meant equal to what men have.
Mhm.
I don't want that, you know?
No thanks.
They have it hard enough and they have their own thing, and I'm happy to let them have it.
Yeah.
So I'm not fighting for equality on those terms. And I'm not
Mm.
teaching about it. I'm not writing about equality as equal to men have. I'm
Mhm.
asking for us to find a sense of equality based on our own feminine needs. And it's going to look different and it's going to be different. And different is not a differential. It's not
Yeah.
hierarchical. It's not better than the other. Gender differences are okay. Gender differentials are not. So when we're looking for empowerment as feminine women, when we're looking for equality, I don't think we need to look at the pathways that have been set before us by the men who have walked those roads. I'm happy for them, but I've got my own road to walk, and it's not linear. It might be a
Mm.
bit circuitous. It probably has a detour. It definitely has a lounge chair and a nice warm bath to take a pause for a second. I mean, my path is like, it's my own and it's completely satisfying to me. And that level of accomplishment and satisfaction, I want that to be equal to whatever it is the previous masculine narrative has wanted to succeed at or achieve. That's equality to me.
Mm. I'm buzzing really because I think this is something that a lot of women need to hear.
Yeah, I hope so.
Equality is not about being the man and having the
No.
same as the man. We are different creatures and we need and desire different things. I am so in celebration of that. And
Oh,
like
good.
you, I don't want to have the equal to men in the way that a lot of people look at it. So I'm really
No,
thrilled.
but we can have an equal amount of fulfillment. We can have an equal amount of joy and love. We can have an equal amount of achieving whatever we want to, and again on our terms. And
Hmm.
what's interesting to me are the things that I now find deeply fulfilling may not be perceived by traditional masculine stereotypes as fulfillment, as successful. Like, for example, I talked a little bit about the fact that I ended up building my last business to multi seven figures. That, by every notion of patriarchal success, is a wild runaway success. And I cannot tell you how unhappy it made me. I
Hmm.
was the most anxious I've ever been. I was the most disconnected from my own integrity and authenticity. The joy I had for the work that I was doing was completely drained. So I'm
Hmm.
building a new business for the satisfied woman, and I have absolutely no desire to make it that big. None. I want to keep it to where I find the joy in the work. I want to keep the business to a size that I can manage and work with the people that I love in a more horizontal way rather than a vertical way. It's proven that when you give women business owners money, they don't keep it. They
Mm.
reinfuse it into their communities. Everyone benefits. And that model is successful. It's successful for all of those who participate in that model directly, as
Yeah.
opposed to being successful to the top gun and the shareholders. So, just because it's different doesn't mean it's worse. Just because
Yeah.
it's more money doesn't mean it's more successful. And just shifting some of these paradigms that we have, I think, are really key.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure that I've shared this story many times on the podcast before, but I think about when my youngest, who's 18, was maybe about 7 or 8, and as adults often when they meet children, oh, so what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
That's a very common question. And I remembered someone asked him, so what do you want to be? And he goes, happy. And they were taken aback. And I just thought,
Oh,
well,
wow.
that is success right there. Because no matter what you be or do in terms
Yeah.
of what when we get asked that question, oh, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a this and that. I am telling you, my heart is so full when I think back to these nuggets that they were dropping that young.
That's precious.
It really is.
I
Really,
mean,
really.
I feel like I'm learning from that right now.
Mm.
Bless his heart. That's amazing.
Yes, it is. I'm so grateful. And I think it kind of speaks to what you're referring to now, that level of fulfillment
Yes.
is
Yeah.
it's not just an outside job, mostly not an outside job, in fact.
Right.
You know?
And for the feminine, the internal landscape is critical. Psychologically speaking, the domain of the feminine is the unconscious. It is your
Mm,
emotions. It is your intuition. It is your dreams. And psychologically speaking, the domain of the masculine is the conscious. It's
mm,
the way that you move in the world. It's your personality. It's the logical mind, the rationale, the thinking. So again, all of us has those things. But the feminine needs that deep sense of connection and fulfillment and okayness in the world. She
mm,
needs to be cherished. And whether that's by her own internal masculine or an external masculine, if you identify as primarily feminine, then that needs to take priority and precedence. I understand and cherish the concept of balance, but in this work, it actually serves us more when we prioritize one polarity over the other. Because
mm.
otherwise we have competing interests and, nobody gets the job done essentially. And certainly we can go back and forth, but I actually want each of us to lean more into our primary polarity more of the time. That's going to allow us to make decisions from the right place, to lead from the right place, to move from our own center, essentially, and for the other polarity to be in service of the one that
Mm.
is our primary one. We're going to feel more energized, less exhausted. We're going to make decisions well. So it's kind of a little aside there.
I love this. How can our I will use the words that you did because I absolutely love that. Beloved partners, our
Yeah.
masculine partners, how can they support us as we step into our feminine? Now, not necessarily from the keys that you mentioned before, obviously
Yeah.
providing the safety and so on and so forth. I get
Yeah.
that that's a big part of it. Um, but let's say someone is coming to you and they're in relationship with other right now, and they're like, okay, I'm really conscious of that. I want to reclaim my feminine power. I'm stepping into that power. In
Yeah.
that context, how can their men support them to do that?
Well, first of all, I think all of us needs to give one another a little bit of grace. Right? We were all born and raised in the same patriarchal culture. We were all born and raised with the same narratives. And none of us really knows exactly how to do this because it's not like anybody pulls us aside at any point and says, look, here's how the feminine behaves. Here's how the
Yeah.
masculine behaves. Which one feels better to you? Oh, by the way, in relationship, it looks like this. So you cannot expect your beloved
Hmm.
masculine partner to have any idea of what they're doing because they were saddled with a narrative that doesn't serve them either.
Yes.
I mean, I've had men who love me dearly ask, "Are you on your period right now? Because you're completely irrational." As if being on my period negates anything that I'm feeling. It doesn't,
Mm.
you know. I've had men who love me, call me bossy and pushy because it's part of their cultural training as well to think that that kind of thing is okay. It's
Mhm.
not, but unless you kind of do the emotional labor of letting them know, they might not know. So just give them some grace, know that everybody is working with the best that they have, and the
Yes.
ones who love you, okay, the masculine counterparts who love you, whether they be an intimate partnership or a friendship or a colleague, the ones who really adore you, cherish you, love you, they're going to be interested in potentially changing their behavior to enhance your own femininity, right? But you're going to have to be brave. And women, look, the feminine is brave. The
Yes.
feminine is brave. If we look through history, the people who have spoken up about things that are wrong when change is needed, they're the women.
Mm.
Okay. So bravery, wildness, being vocal, being inquisitive, that's on us. So if we see bad behavior from the masculine, because it happens all the time, even from the best of guys, call it out and see who responds. Give them a chance. See who responds. What we cannot do any longer is excuse the bad behavior.
Mhm.
We can't absorb it either. Oh, that's just locker room talk. Oh, boys will be boys. No, no. They will continue to be boys in that way unless we speak out and give them a different way and say, hey, look, I know that this isn't part of your history or your MO, but you need to know how this makes me feel. And I think that because the feminine power comes really from her intuition and emotions, starting from that place, this is how I feel about this behavior. This is how I feel about this experience. You're kind
Yes.
of flipping that switch that you're staying in the feminine and
Mhm.
asking their masculine to elevate, right?
Yes.
Because we can't create change as feminine women if we're in the masculine doing it.
Mhm.
We have to stay in our own power.
Yes, that's beautiful because I was going to ask you what's the other side of the coin of that. And for me, it is very much what you landed on, which is that our job as women is to show up in our femininity
Yes.
so that men can rise in their masculinity, right?
Yes.
And I think that a lot of the dissonance in relationships is because we're so used to being in that. And that's not necessarily what most men, if I generalize, are desiring. They're wanting the feminine woman and they're
Correct.
getting a lot of masculinity. I don't need you. I can do it myself. Thank you very much.
That's
I
right.
don't need your help on this. I'm fine all on my own. I'm an independent woman and all the different things. And I think, yes, it's nothing wrong with being independent. There's nothing wrong with being able to do and have and be it all. But is it, as you said, what you desire? And if it is,
Well,
that's okay. I'm not going to judge that.
yeah,
But I understand that feminine power that you're referring to.
but you can do and be and have it all as a feminine woman.
Absolutely.
You do it in your own way. And
Yeah.
it's interesting you bring this up. I actually literally have just released a course on exactly this
Oh,
called From Self
amazing.
to Soulmate, helping women to become that attractive force for the
Mm.
masculine to rise up and essentially fill that vacuum and be present for her. Look, if we think of it just simply as a magnet,
Mhm.
okay, just like we all know how magnets work. Magnets on the same pole repel each other. They cannot come together. You
Mhm.
have to have magnets on the opposite polarity in order for them to attract and come together.
Yes.
So, so many women, look, it's nobody's fault. Okay. Like I said, it's improper training everywhere for all of us. So many women have done what I call donning the mask of the masculine because we're raised in this culture that says that masculine qualities are better, more priority, and that feminine qualities need to be diminished. They're submissive. We don't want those. We do that within ourselves in order to be a part of this world in a safe way. So we man up. We make all the decisions. We become the leaders. We tell people what to do. We are the bosses. And that actually gives the world the wrong impression of who we are. It exhausts and overwhelms us, and it does everyone a disservice. Because if you're asking a masculine partner to step up and in for you, you have to let him be the masculine partner. So we have to downshift and downgrade our own masculinity and center our femininity. That's not only going to be more attractive to the masculine, it's going to be less exhausting for us. And trust me, ladies, if you are wearing the pants and manning up in your life, you are going to be attracting a feminine partner. And I promise you, if you're a feminine woman looking for a masculine man, that is not what you need. You do not need a feminine partner because you end up being their mother.
Hmm.
So, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
not a comfortable position for anybody.
No, not at all. So, as we talk about this feminine power and really claiming this in the world that we live in, what are some
Yeah.
of the ways that women can nourish themselves and really recharge and look after themselves so that we're able to navigate what's going on the outside as well?
I love that you use the word nourished.
Good.
So, nourishing is feminine and
Mhm.
nurturing is masculine. So,
Ooh,
yeah, I
nurture is
know.
masculine.
Yes.
Talk to me about that too, because that's not
Yeah.
what I thought. Okay.
Look at the definition. To
Yeah.
nurture is an external, it's a very external concept. Like you are feeding someone else. You're helping them to grow. You're giving them guidance. Right?
Mm,
Whereas to nourish means to bring inside, to feed yourself, to have all of your nutrients, whether they be emotional nutrients or, physical nutrients, provided so that you can be illuminated from the inside out. So to nourish is the feminine and to nurture is the masculine. And we as women, as a culture, have had the narrative that our job is to give away, to provide for all that, to feed everyone else. And boy, we've believed that so heartily that you find women in all of these nurturing modalities because we've been told that that's the value of a woman is to continuously give, 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 and feed, 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 feed. And
that
it's
is
not.
that
It's
is a
not.
mic drop moment, Alanna.
I
That's a mic
know.
drop moment right there. Honestly,
I
I
know.
I would have said I wouldn't. I mean, I used the word nourish. We've been speaking this about this, so it felt natural to use it. But I am pretty sure that I've used the word nurture, and women or men or mothers are nurturers, and
No.
actually now that you've placed it and put it that way, it's so clear to me the difference.
Yeah. And the masculine, the healthy masculine is profoundly nurturing.
Oh,
Because again, they're
so beautiful.
generous. They want to give, they want to feed, they want to provide. And they
Mm,
find power and confidence in that. Whereas the feminine, I mean, think of even just how our bodies biologically are designed. We are receptacles. We
yeah.
do receive the masculine. And so to receive, to be nourished, to be fed, not to do the feeding, but to be fed is truly to be centered in your feminine. And I use the metaphor of a well that as women, we need to keep our wells filled. If you drain a well too quickly without letting it fill back up, it'll actually just run dry. And what
Mm,
a well is, in and of itself, it's a beautiful thing, but it's also there to support the community around it. People go to the well for
mm,
life energy, and the feminine is the harbinger of life energy.
mm,
So the well has a responsibility from the community to be tended to. The community needs to make sure they don't over drain the well because the well is not there to feed everyone willy-nilly
mm.
all day long, right? So they need to be conservative with their drawing from the well, and they
Mhm.
need to help support the well in its nourishment, in its regeneration. And as the feminine woman, we need to make sure that we've got those clear walls around the well, those boundaries, so that it's not overdrawn from. And we tend to it and we nourish ourselves and we replete ourselves through self care, really, through the things that bring us that sense of joy and pleasure. Because remember, the feminine loves pleasure. So, what makes any woman feel pleasure? There's a lot of things, and I'm not here to
Yeah.
determine anybody's list. But typically, we
Mhm.
love self-care. We love things like that warm candlelit bath. We love movement.
Mhm.
Dance is deeply feminine. We love feeling, so anything sensual, meaning anything that livens up our senses. So, like the clothing that you wear, the way it feels on your skin, any kind of physical pleasure, sexual pleasure, anything that we do to move our bodies is incredibly helpful for us. Creativity, right? Because
Mhm.
the feminine has the power of generation, literally the ability to create something alive from almost nothing. So anytime we create, anytime we're in that creative flow, that's going to help to replenish our well as well. So think about that, that you never want to be drained. We're
Yes.
not here to feed the world. We're not even here to just, we're not to be drawn from as if we have an endless reservoir. It is not endless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I growing up, I had so many beautiful sayings from my mother, and I recently actually had a podcast episode with my mother and daughter on it as a kind
Oh,
of
awesome.
healing generational lines and so on. But the thing that she always said, and I teach now, is that it's not about is my cup half full or half empty. You want to give from an overflowing cup. So you fill your cup up to full and you give from the overflow so that
Go
what's
mom.
in there is yours. And I mean, I grew up with this, and obviously I understood it theoretically, and I had to kind of work through, well, what are all the things that actually fill up my cup and all of this. But I love that. I think the well is a beautiful example of the boundaries, which I think a lot of us are learning to really step into more and more today, which I'm really, really happy to see. And it's needed.
I think that's it. I mean, go mom. You have a very smart
Yes.
family, by the way.
Oh, I really am.
I mean,
I
what what
really
what
am
I'm
proud
getting
of
from
us.
your family are like pearls of wisdom.
Oh,
I had my one mic drop moment. Your family's got like a ton of mic drop moments. This is, I love this. And she's right, that we do need to serve others from an overfull cup or well. And I
yeah.
think, what I hear in that is one of the things I recognize about our cultural narrative and how women should be in the world. I mean, we all have to stop shooting ourselves, but
Yes.
women are taught that their value is how it is in how much they give themselves away. And women are also taught that they will only be needed or protected or provided for in as much that they are able to continually give. Right?
Mm.
So if I don't arrange to pick my kids up from all 942 play dates this week, right? Women are trained to never say no. Because if we say no, if we are suddenly unavailable to give of ourselves, we might not be needed. We might not be safe. We might not be protected. And it's all BS. It's a belief system that's incorrect and that does a tremendous disservice to women who are always operating from an empty cup or an empty well. And so we're always operating kind of on our back foot at a detriment from a place of
Mm.
disempowerment. And I know that women listening who've grown up with that narrative that we just have to provide, we just have to give of ourselves all the time, will hear something like, please only give from an overflowing cup as being selfish.
Mhm.
But here's the thing about femininity. There really is no selfish for the feminine. When tending to our own well, when assuring that our cup is full, it actually benefits everyone else. Remember what I said in the beginning? If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
That's right.
Okay? If you're drained, if you're not happy, you're serving that unhappiness to everyone
Mhm.
else. If
Mhm.
you're tense and stressed, you're serving that tension and stress to everyone else. And I know feminine women don't want to do that. I know that a huge drive for the feminine woman is to be a source of joy, benefit, happiness to those around her. I think I heard once that a mother is only happy, a mother is only as happy as her least happy child. Uh-huh. So it's critical for us to be in a place of joy and fulfillment because it will provide joy and fulfillment for those around us. So selfishness my dear fellow feminine women, is your
Yeah,
birthright. And don't worry, because everyone benefits from you tending to yourself.
absolutely. Oh, yes. I hold to that. Amazing. So as we're talking about support, because I know there are a lot of women listening who will relate to this, and I'd love your take on it, which is, okay, so we want our beloved masculine partners to stand up and support us. All of those things are really important. How can we as women support each other to step into
Mm.
our feminine power? Because I know that there are a lot of people who will say, well, look, in the corporate world, if you're not competing and if you're not kind of like stepping on the next person or this and that, you're not going to get
Yeah.
anywhere. And I know that's still the old way of thinking of success. But how can we as women support each other, that community, that sisterhood, so that we can reclaim that feminine power?
Yeah, it's critical actually, and it's another bit of BS belief system from the patriarchy that has been handed down. You know, one of the values of our patriarchal culture is this idea of individuality or doing everything yourself. There's a very DIY kind of mindset that you have been more successful if you've made your own way, paved your own path, done your own thing. We have this heavy emphasis on everybody like being an individual. And look, I love being myself too. I'm definitely an individual. But there is a lie in that and a disservice in that because we as human beings are not built for DIY and individuality. We are relational beings. We are here for relationship. And, we know that one of the ways to have power and control over others is to isolate them.
Mhm.
So everyone in this culture has this myth of individuality, which is an isolating myth. It puts us, us against the world. But for women, it's compounded because not only is it us against the world, it's us against each other. Women are raised to believe in a scarcity mindset, and particularly that we have to compete with other women for men, for jobs, for social status. I mean, it's why we see every reality TV show centered around
Yes.
women end in some sort of a catty bratty fight.
Mhm.
So this is, again, let's just give everyone grace. We were
Mhm.
raised with these narratives. We were raised to believe this. It's just not true. And one of the fundamental qualities of the feminine is collaboration, connection, communication. And we in history, like long past history, our tribal, original kind of existence, women spent time together. And this is why one of our functions is women are great with communication and we have a more elevated sense of emotional connection because we've spent so much time with each other throughout the day, sorting out all of the issues of whatever tribe we lived in. And if we don't have that time, those issues don't get sorted.
Mhm.
Women are diplomats. We know how to talk our way through things. We know how to socialize in that way. And when we lose that, we actually lose a part of ourselves. So there is nothing to compete for. There's no woman to compete against. There is absolutely plenty of everything out there for everyone. And supporting one another is it's critical. So to find your soul sisters is huge. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I've created a community as a part of my work, The Satisfied Woman. I want women to be able to talk to each other about what it means to be satisfied because we're right at the beginning of this journey. The patriarchy and the masculine have been doing this for thousands of years. They know their journey to success and fulfillment. And they've got lots of examples of men who have done that before them. We don't have that for women. We're kind of
Mhm.
figuring it out right now with the agency and options and choices that we have that are brand new at this time. And we need to talk to each other. Hey, how
Yes.
did you do that? Oh, that's a really good idea. Oh my gosh, I never thought about success on those terms. If we don't
Mm.
have this dialogue and this collaboration, ladies, we're never going to make it.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I love that you kind of, I'm going to call it the three C's, which you said collaboration, connection, and
Community.
communication
Yeah.
and community. Well, four C's.
Four
So
C's.
I will also add one, and I will say celebration. We need to be able to
Oh,
celebrate each other and
Yes.
celebrate us just as we are in our own versions, in our own messiness, as we might call it, and our own everything. Because I think what you've said, and I spoke to one of my dear friends on a podcast. Actually, we spoke about our friendship, and it was called Refining Sisterhood. And one of the things we said is, if we could just celebrate each other more,
Yeah.
a lot of the tension will dissipate. A lot of it will just dissolve, because then what we're doing is we're honoring each other in our own sovereignty. And I think this is so needed. So
What a
beautiful.
beautiful way to put it, Simone. To honor
Thank
each
you.
other in our own sovereignty. You know, I talk at the end of the book about each of us as women rising up into our throne as queens. And the
Mm,
queen is sovereign. She has command over her queendom, as it were. And she
yeah.
has people that support her, and she does not do it alone. And,
Yeah.
you know, I like to think of it as adjusting each other's crowns. We all got
I
those
love
crowns
that.
on, right? But like, hey, girl, yours is tipped a little bit. Let's get you straight.
I love it.
There's a tremendous amount of support in that. I think that's a beautiful notion.
That is beautiful. So just very practically, for those listening who might be thinking, I love this conversation. There's a lot that I can pull from. Like, what
Yeah.
is that first step that I can take to step into my feminine power? Is there, whether it's a formula or an
Yeah,
exercise someone can do, that they can do one of two things: recognize, hey, this is what I'm good at, and this is where I need to pull up. And then
sure.
what can they do? What's that one step?
Yeah, this is a great question. So the good news is that for all of us feminine women, we've already got everything we need. It's already inbuilt. You don't have to go looking for it. You know, I'm not going to tell you about intuition and then you have to go, oh no, but I don't have any. You definitely do. I don't need to talk about emotional depth and you go, oh no, but I only have a rational mind. Actually, no. So you've already got everything you need. You're well equipped for the journey. And really all it is either a recognition or a re-recognition,
Mm,
either a claiming or a reclaiming, right? Depending on how much you've been exposed to this kind of ideas, or maybe you're hearing it for the first time. The absolute first thing that I recommend that any woman do is strengthen the connection to her own intuition. So
mm,
if I had to name the top two qualities of femininity, because femininity has many qualities, as does masculinity, and both have amazing qualities, are powerful and important in the world. But the two for femininity are our emotional depth and our intuition.
mm,
These are things that as feminine women we have intrinsically, we have a lock on them, we have them to a degree that masculine men really don't. I mean, and that's even part of our biology. The fact that we have such an enormous hormonal fluctuation every month imparts an emotionality that biological men will just never experience. Again, not better or worse. We're just talking, you know, biology. It is what it is. So to tune into your intuition is to build a sense of self-trust and
mm,
self-confidence. And in this patriarchy, in this culture, we are given far too many messages that our intuition, because it's not logical, shouldn't be heeded. And I guarantee you that any woman who has not heeded her intuition has been, it's a disservice to them. It's been in detriment to them. Your intuition, I think of it as the voice of your foremothers coming
mm,
through you to speak to you now. I actually hear it as the voice of my beloved grandmother.
mm,
Because all the women who have come before us, I know that we don't have it easy today, and some of us have it harder than others, but all the women who've come before us, they've had it much harder. They've had far less agency, far less power, far less choices, far less opportunities. And their lessons live on through our intuition. And so you don't need to figure it out. It doesn't have to be logical, but it has to be listened to, and you have it. So to develop the self-trust and the strength that when your intuition speaks up and tells you go in that direction or don't go in that direction, that you just do it. If you
mm.
start doing that, your femininity will build inside of you. You will have a sense of self-confidence in your femininity that you didn't have before, but also that I promise you is going to guide you into the most full and beautiful expression of yourself.
That is beautiful. And I love the idea of the ancestry, the what came before us, that it lends to a sense of the responsibility that we have to do this for
Yes,
ourselves, for them, and then to pass the baton to change the narrative. And I think
absolutely.
that is so stunning. That is beautiful.
It is a tremendous responsibility. And look, I wish we didn't have to do all this work, right? I wish I could write a book like this and the world would go, "Oh yeah, you know what? You're right. Here you go." I wish I could wave a magic wand. But, as happens, women are going to have to do probably more of the legwork to get this done. We're capable of it. We're equipped for this, and it is a responsibility. It's not only a responsibility to the women who have come before us because they've done the work to get us here,
Yes.
to give us this opportunity, this agency, these chances. And boy, I don't want to take advantage of that. I don't want to lose them. I want to pass those along. So yeah, I'd say it's no pressure, but kind of all the pressure.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing is it's all the pressure to be your best self. It's just to
Yeah.
be you and show up as your powerful feminine self. I think that's a good pressure to have. That's a good
Well, the
pressure.
privilege of a lifetime is to be who we are, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I can talk for hours. I always get to the end of these podcasts way too quick. But I will start here or pause here, perhaps, to say thank you. Really, I celebrate you and I celebrate all that you're doing to help women reclaim their feminine power, to step into their strength, and to do all of this amazing work that you're doing in the world. Thank you, Alanna. Thank you so much.
It's a great pleasure and privilege and responsibility, and it's an honor to be here with you.
Thank you. Now, I like to ask all of my guests a final question, and that is, what is your soulful sound to the world? And that's a prayer or desire that you wish upon the world.
It is actually, I wrote it at the front of my book, and it was funny because my publisher was like, we don't usually start with an epigraph from the author. I was like, yeah, but we are.
Yes.
But we are because I truly, this book to me, it is a huge responsibility.
Mm.
I've shifted my entire life to dedicate myself to this work because I understand how necessary it is and how much it can change the lives of women today. So I start my book with this prayer. May all your needs be met and may all your wishes come true. I wish you all the pleasure and satisfaction this life has to offer you as you walk the way of the satisfied woman.
Breathe that in, everybody. Alanna, thank you so much for your time, your
Great
presence, and
pleasure.
your guidance.
Absolutely.
If you love this episode, hit that like and subscribe button and make sure to check out our other episodes. Thanks so much for being with us today, sending you love, healing, and sound wherever you are.